All right, so we're diving into dog behavior today.
Yeah.
You shared this really interesting episode from a pet podcast, and it seems like you're trying to figure out what's behind your dog's more energetic moments. The digging, the chewing, the scratching.
Yeah, those can be pretty frustrating.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today.
Sounds good.
Not just understanding why dogs do these things,
Hmm.
but also some practical tips to create a bit more harmony at home.
Absolutely. The more we understand about canine instincts, the better we can redirect that energy in a positive way.
That makes sense.
A lot of times we think dogs are acting out of spite, almost like a human would, like they're getting revenge.
Right, it's like picture your dog plotting with a chewed-up shoe in its mouth.
Exactly. But really, it's not about that at all.
So their motivations are different from ours.
Much different. It's more about fulfilling their instinctual needs, even if those needs drive us a little crazy, like chewing, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Chewing. For puppies, it's like how babies put everything in their mouths.
Exactly. It's how they explore the world. And of course, it helps with teething, but it goes beyond that.
I've noticed my dog chews more when she's bored. It's like her entertainment.
That's a great point. You're right, chewing can provide mental and physical stimulation for dogs, and both are essential for their well-being.
Even if it means our favorite slippers get sacrificed.
Unfortunately, sometimes. But it's not just boredom. Chewing can also be a way for dogs to relieve stress.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. Chewing releases endorphins, which have a calming effect.
That makes sense. So chewing is natural. It can be healthy. But how do we stop it from becoming destructive?
Well, redirection is key. Instead of scolding them for chewing on something they shouldn't, give them a good alternative. And when it comes to chew toys, variety is super important.
So not just the same old bone.
Right. Think about different textures, durability levels, puzzle toys that make them work for a treat.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I usually just buy whatever's on sale.
Mm.
But my dog probably gets bored with that.
It's easy to fall into that trap. But imagine eating the same meal every day.
I'd get pretty tired of it.
Exactly. Dogs are the same way. They need that variety.
What about those bitter apple sprays? Do they actually work?
They can be helpful as a deterrent. They taste bad to dogs, but they're safe for your stuff. Especially useful for things you really can't have them chewing on, like electrical cords or furniture.
Yeah, those are definitely off limits.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Now let's talk about another behavior that's a favorite for some dogs.
Yeah.
Digging.
Ah, yes. Digging. It's a classic. And it's definitely instinctual. Have you ever noticed how some breeds just seem drawn to digging? Like terriers?
Now that you mention it, yeah. I have a friend with a Jack Russell, and that dog is a digging machine.
There's a reason for that. Terriers were originally bred for hunting vermin, which often involved digging. So that drive to dig is in their DNA.
Wow. It's like it's programmed into them.
Exactly. But even for dogs without that specific background, digging can serve a lot of different purposes.
Like what? Sometimes it feels like they're just digging for the fun of it.
Yeah. Sometimes it really is that simple, creating a cool spot to lie in, especially when it's hot. Or it could be boredom, a way to release energy. And in some cases, they might dig to try and escape, especially if they're feeling anxious or confined.
The escape thing is a bit concerning. So how do we channel that digging energy into something more productive?
A designated digging area can work wonders, like a sandbox or a specific corner of the yard. The key is making it clear to your dog that this is their digging zone. You can even bury toys or treats there to encourage them to use it.
That's a great idea. It gives them an outlet without destroying the whole yard.
Exactly. And just like with chewing, plenty of physical exercise can help minimize digging that comes from boredom or frustration.
Makes sense. A tired dog is less likely to dig up the garden.
Eh.
But what about those escape artists? The ones who dig under or through fences?
That's where things get tricky. You want to make sure your fence is secure, no gaps for them to squeeze through. Some people bury chicken wire along the base of the fence to deter digging. Smart. Okay, we've covered chewing and digging. But there's one more behavior I really want to understand. Scratching.
Ah, yes. The sound of nails on pretty much anything. But is it just about maintaining their claws? Or is there more to it?
I have a feeling it's more than just a manicure session. It's like they're trying to tell us something. You're so right. It does feel like they're trying to communicate something. So help us translate. What are some of the reasons behind all that scratching?
Well, sometimes it is about claw maintenance. Keeping those nails trimmed and filed down. But you're right, there's often more to it. Scratching can be a way for dogs to mark their territory.
Ah, leaving their mark.
Exactly. It's both a visual and a scent marker. Like you're saying, this is my turf.
Makes sense. It's like their version of a no trespassing sign.
Pretty much.
Hmm?
And scratching can also be a good way to stretch those muscles,
Yes.
especially in the legs and back. Like how good it feels for us to stretch after sitting for a while. Dogs get that same relief from scratching. Okay, so we got territory marking and stretching.
Yeah.
But I've also noticed my dog will scratch at the door when she wants to go out, or at her food bowl when she's hungry.
That's a great observation. It shows another reason for scratching, attention seeking. They learn that certain actions get a reaction from us, whether it's letting them out, filling their bowl, or even just a pat.
So it's like, hey, pay attention to me.
Exactly. But there's another important aspect of scratching that we need to talk about. Anxiety.
Oh,
Here.
anxiety.
Yeah, scratching especially at doors or windows can be a sign that a dog is feeling stressed or trapped.
So how can we tell if the scratching is more about anxiety than just wanting attention or needing a good stretch?
That's a good question. If your dog is scratching excessively, especially when you're getting ready to leave or when they're in a crate or small space, that could be a red flag.
Like they're trying to get out of there.
Exactly. Like they're trying to escape a situation that's making them uncomfortable. Other signs of anxiety might include pacing, whining, panting, or even destructive behaviors like chewing or digging. That's so sad to think about. So how do we help a dog who's scratching because of anxiety?
Well, the first step is figuring out what's causing the anxiety. Is it separation anxiety, fear of loud noises, something else? Once you know the trigger, you can start addressing it.
Right. So it's like detective work.
In a way.
Yeah.
And in some cases, behavioral modification techniques can be really helpful.
Like what kinds of techniques?
Well, it might involve gradually desensitizing your dog to the source of their anxiety or teaching them coping mechanisms.
So basically helping them learn to manage their fear.
Exactly. And you know those calming pheromone sprays or diffusers?
I've heard of those. Do they actually work?
They can be quite effective for some dogs. You see, dog-appeasing pheromones, or DAP, mimic the pheromones released by mother dogs to calm their puppies.
So it creates a sense of security for them.
Exactly. It can help reduce anxiety.
It's like aromatherapy for dogs. That's a good way to put it. And you can also talk to your vet about medications that might be helpful in severe cases of anxiety. But for many dogs, a combination of environmental adjustments, behavioral training, and calming aids can make a big difference.
It's all about creating a safe and predictable environment for them. Okay, so let's get back to those listener questions.
Yeah.
One of them was about preventing dogs from chewing on everything when they're home alone. Any tips for those of us who've come home to a chewed-up disaster?
We've touched on a few strategies already, but let's put it all together. First and foremost, supervision is key, especially for puppies or dogs who are known chewers. If you can't be there to watch them, consider using a crate or a designated safe space.
So limit their access to temptation.
Exactly. And make sure that space is stocked with plenty of appropriate chew toys to keep them occupied. Remember, variety is key. Different textures, shapes, even puzzle toys that make them work for a treat.
I need to remember that I tend to buy the same old toys.
It happens. But think about it from your dog's perspective. Would you want to eat the same thing every day?
Definitely not.
Exactly. And what about those deterrent sprays? We talked about those earlier.
Right, the bitter apple spray.
Yes, those can be helpful, especially for tempting areas like furniture legs or electrical cords. And here's another tip. Consider leaving on some calming music or white noise when you're away. It can help mask any startling sounds that might trigger anxiety and chewing.
That's a great idea. I never thought of that.
It can make a big difference for some dogs. And don't underestimate the power of exercise before you leave. A tired dog is less likely to get into mischief.
So true. Okay, let's move on to another listener question. This one's about digging. Someone wrote in asking for help with a dog who's obsessed with digging in the same spot, no matter what they do to stop it.
Ah, the persistent digger. Sounds like they've found their favorite spot. So
Yeah.
we talked about designating a digging area. But what if that doesn't work? What if they're fixated on one particular spot?
Right. What then?
Well, sometimes you need to get a little creative with deterrents. Have you ever heard of using cayenne pepper?
Cayenne pepper for digging. How does that work?
Dogs generally don't like the smell of cayenne pepper, and they definitely don't like the taste. So sprinkling a bit in their digging spot can be a safe and effective way to discourage them. Another option is to partially bury rocks or chicken wire in the area.
So make it less enjoyable for them to dig there.
Exactly. It encourages them to find a new spot. And remember, redirection is key. Make sure you're providing them with plenty of alternative activities, walks, playtime mental puzzles, to keep them engaged and stimulated.
So it's all about making that particular spot less appealing without resorting to punishment.
Exactly. You want to redirect the behavior, not make them afraid to dig. And speaking of redirection, Are you providing enough other activities for them?
That's a good point. It's not just about stopping the digging, it's about giving them something else to do.
Exactly. Okay, so what if you've tried all these things and you're still struggling?
It can be frustrating when nothing seems to work.
It definitely can. Don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah.
There are certified dog trainers and behaviorists who specialize in these kinds of issues.
There are experts who can help.
Absolutely. They can assess your dog's individual needs and create a tailored plan to address the underlying causes of their behavior.
That's reassuring to know. Sometimes we need a little extra guidance.
Absolutely. And remember, every dog is an individual. What works for one might not work for another. It's all about patience consistency and building a strong bond with your dog based on understanding and trust.
This has been so insightful. I'm already feeling more confident about tackling those tricky behaviors. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have a question for you, our listener. Think about all the enrichment activities we've talked about. Puzzle toys, training sessions, scent work, even just providing a variety of chew toys. Which of these resonates with you the most, and which one are you excited to try with your own dog? Take a moment to really consider this, because in part 3, we're going to dig deeper into creating a more fulfilling and enriching life for your furry friend. Welcome back to our deep dive on dog behavior. We spent the last 2 parts talking about chewing, digging, scratching. You know what's behind them and some ways to manage them. But now it's time to get proactive. Remember that question I asked you last time about enrichment activities?
Yeah,
What stood out as something you'd actually try with your own dog?
I'm curious to hear what you thought.
Me too. But first, you mentioned that enrichment is key to preventing those unwanted behaviors in the first place.
Absolutely. A bored dog is often a dog who gets into trouble. They'll find their own entertainment, which isn't always what we want.
Right? So keeping them enriched can help prevent a lot of those headaches.
Exactly.
So thinking about all those activities, we talked about puzzle toys, training sessions, set work, even just having a variety of chew toys. Which one piqued your interest the most?
It's a tough choice. There are so many good ones.
I have to admit, the scent work thing really intrigued me. I'd never heard of it before, but it sounds like a really fun way to challenge my dog mentally.
It's super popular. And for good reason. Dogs have an amazing sense of smell. It's like their superpower.
It really is.
And scent work taps into that natural ability. It's like a treasure hunt for them, using their noses to find hidden treats or toys.
I love that.
You can start simple, like hiding treats around the house, then gradually make it more challenging. There are even scent work classes and competitions if you and your dog really get into it.
Wow, that's amazing. I could see how that would be mentally stimulating. And tiring, too, in a good way.
Definitely. A tired dog is a good dog.
What about other enrichment activities that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, one that's often overlooked is simply providing a variety of chew toys. We talked about them for redirecting chewing, but they're also great for keeping dogs entertained.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of always buying the same type of chew toy.
It's a common mistake. But imagine eating the same meal every day.
Oh, it would get old fast.
Exactly. Dogs are the same way. They need variety. And when you're choosing chew toys, always think about safety.
Of course.
Make sure they're durable enough that your dog can't tear off small pieces.
Yeah.
And always supervise them, especially with a new toy.
Safety first. What about those interactive feeders? I see those everywhere now.
Those are great. They can slow down fast eaters, and they make mealtime more challenging and engaging. Instead of just gobbling down their food, they have to work for it.
I like that idea. It's like a puzzle for them.
Exactly. And it helps prevent boredom and those unwanted behaviors that come with it. Have you ever thought about incorporating training sessions into your dog's routine?
I've been meaning to. I know the basic commands, but sometimes it feels like we're both stuck in a rut.
That's when you have to get creative. Teach them some fun tricks, work on more advanced commands, or even try something like agility training.
Agility training sounds intense.
It can be, but it's also a lot of fun. And there are tons of resources available if you want some guidance.
I might have to look into that. And the best part is, it's a bonding experience for both of you.
Exactly. It's not just about the dog learning. It's about strengthening that connection you have.
I love that. It's about the relationship.
Exactly. And it keeps their mind sharp. Don't underestimate how much dogs need mental stimulation. It's just as important as physical exercise. Speaking of which...
Right. Walks, playtime, a good run in the park. Those are all important too.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between physical and mental enrichment. And every dog is different. So pay attention to your dog's individual needs and preferences.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. Some dogs might love puzzle toys. Others might go crazy for a game of fetch. It's about figuring out what works best for your dog.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to keep my dog happy, engaged, and hopefully out of trouble.
That's what we like to hear. And remember, it's all about creating a fulfilling and enriching life for your furry friend. By giving them outlets for their natural instincts and energy, you're setting them up for success.
And a lot less chewing, digging, and scratching.
Exactly.
Well said. Well, that wraps up our deep dives into decoding dog behavior. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And remember, if you're facing specific challenges, don't hesitate to reach out to a professional trainer or behaviorist. They can give you personalized guidance and support. Until next time, happy decoding.